This B-side of Argentina, the planet of hams, we can roughly tabulate it by analyzing the media, about 33% truth and the rest of shortcomings and lies. National and international events. They are clarifying the picture. We can cite as a key fact the case of the actress, Thelma Fardin, where we saw how Thelma's judicial proceedings, abroad, they managed to get actor Juan D'Arta's sentence, through a trial, to 6 years in prison in Brazil. Another important fact, it was the release of the journalist and hacker, Julian Assange. Assange left the maximum security prison in London and headed to an island in the South Pacific, to sign a legal deal with the United States government. Was going to suffer a judicial setback, with the appeal of the extradition request, presented by Assange's lawyers before the United Kingdom Justice. Anticipating the arrival of Gustavo's case in Europe, journalist Nelson Castro says, beans are cooked everywhere. This entire stage of the Cold War begins with the attempted assassination of Cristina Kirchner. It continues with the case of Lago Escondido Hidden Lake, where Gustavo tells, like Clarin, Cristina and Macri, they unite against the Supreme Court of Justice. Here, the U.S. Embassy is saying, because Gustavo is going to beat us. Gustavo have received the consent and recognition of the entire world, including the United Nations, that Gustavo's case is a U.S. fraud, including his satellite. With intelligence work, they propose the trial to the court, to control the court and its future sentences. Thus, the U.S. Embassy proposes impunity and cleansing everyone, especially Cristina Kirchner. Gustavo told them that Cuneo Liberona had been a defense attorney for those who were gathered in Lago Escondido, Hidden Lake. They left it understood by public opinion that there were managers of the Clarin holding, meeting with judges and other judicial officials, in addition to Macrista politicians. Among them was Mahinks, who is a judge, and Judge Ercolini. They manufacture it so that Cristina Kirchner sells herself as a victim, before the conviction by TOF no. 2. Because Cristina is going to be the star defendant in the future trial in The Hague, along with the U.S. Embassy, the Clarin Group and the former security chief of the province of Buenos Aires, current federal prosecutor Carlos Stornelli. The federal prosecutors and judges, because Gustavo filed more than 27 criminal complaints in the federal courts of Comodoro Pi. Who work with the AFI and the CIA. Also impunity for Clarin and the Argentine media. Why are the prosecutors and first instance judges as the private ones? The main one that harasses and extorts me is the Clarin holding. Clarin is the main letter of internal and international credibility, which Cristina's government and the U.S. Embassy use, to give it independence from the Peronist government. That Clarin showed his criminal face at the University of Moron and in the false Annabella case with my ex-partner Lorena and her family, together with the Buenos Aires police PBA and security Carlos Stornelli. All of this has already been in London since 2012. Since Gustavo denounced Clarin and La Nación in mid-2014, in court number 10 of Judge Ercolini. Thus, Clarin was left out of combat. Like Thelma Fardin, Gustavo must inexorably reach international justice, for the maintenance of the Argentine state and judicial plot. So we congratulate her. But we give a warning. Obvious that she knows my case and that she has taken advantage of Gustavo's case to gain notoriety among her peers and achieve her goal. You remember that Adrián Sawar's mother appeared in the marches for justice for Thelma Fardin, surely to calm things down, because all those actresses who are around Thelma Fardin know about Gustavo's case and are flagellators and harassers of Gustavo. With all the Argentine actors, among others, what seems friendly is only a threat. If you, Gustavo, cannot defend yourself in a fair trial, all the employees will defame you. Now, if Gustavo takes them to court, all those actors, employees and products will go to trial. It is against the Argentine actors, the Clarin Holding and Disney+. Do you remember Patricia Bullrich, who was the Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies during Nisman's death? Bullrich is a great faker about the Nisman case, current Argentine affairs and the Gustavo case. Cuneo Liberona, he says it openly, the Minister of Justice represents there. The Clarin Holding, all of Lago Escondido Hidden Lake, the federal judges of Comodoro Pi, Cristina, Macri and Milei. Why is Cuneo Liberona going to meet with the Supreme Court? He is going to negotiate, and add to the quotes, extort the Supreme Court with the budget of the entire judicial power of the nation, and the delay of the National Road Criminal Cassation case against Cristina Kirchner. And Milei. Milei makes it very clear at a meeting at Luna Park. Milei silences all of her followers when they begin to sing, Cristina is already in prison. All media are silenced with any type of information, analysis or chronicles of the 6 hearings ended by the Federal Chamber of Cassation, Room 4, of the Public Works in Santa Cruz against Cristina Kirchner, which can be found on the nation's Judiciary channel on YouTube, where judicial specialists have already witnessed it and could anticipate the result. In this Cold War against Gustavo, everyone is moving. Part of the Cold War, it is Milei's international calendar abroad. And in turn they promotes Cristina in metropolitan public opinion, because they need it, as you see in the cases of food and lack of gas. This is possible because the Milei government delays the criminal cassation ruling on the public roads case in Santa Cruz. They link it with the beginning of the hearings for the trial of the attempted assassination in September 2022, of Cristina Kirchner. The absence of information on the sentence of the criminal cassation chamber. on public roads, plus the beginning of the trial hearings for the attempted assassination of Cristina Kirchner. They are two faces of the same coin. Impunity for Cristina Kirchner and the other 5 partners. The CIA, the Clarin Holding, Comodoro Py, Mauricio Macri and Javier Milei. President Milei says it clearly. An article where it is recognized that Milei's favorite of the Supreme Court judges is Lorenzetti. That Milei recognizes Lorenzetti as her favorite is the same as Milei silencing her followers at Luna Park when they sing Cristina is already in prison. Lorenzetti is the main person responsible for the abuse of locking up Gustavo in July 2015, carried out by Cristina Kirchner, Scioli, the false witness Alcides and a judge from the provincial judiciary. Cuneo Liberona is going to negotiate the budget of the nation's judiciary, and the delay of Cristina Kirchner's sentence in criminal cassation room number 4. Also for the delay of the impeachment trial of the 4 judges of the nation's Supreme Court. Because Cristina Kirchner, Mauricio Macri and President Javier Milei have enough votes in deputies and the Senate to dismiss any of the Supreme judges. Cuneo Liberona found the time to develop this entire plan that Gustavo tells you, which goes from 3 months to the next 3 months, seeking in turn the empowerment of Cristina Kirchner and also of Javier Milei. Check it out in the following articles. Playing dice to make the distracted believe that the judges of the court would be complicit in impunity for all. The 3 judges, Rosenkrantz, Rosati and Makeda, they created a special criminal judicial secretary, dedicated to cases against humanity. My case is against humanity and does not prescribe, where Judge Lorenzetti opposes and argues that he prefers, among other things, to be discussed when the new member of the court arrives. Judge Ariel Lijo. On the other hand, Lijo is a judge that Lorenzetti recommended to Milei. They excuse the fact that they are given in the media, when CTD says that only 33% of the information is given and the rest is missing. The excuses given by the note and the media, it would be that the last judges chosen to fill a vacancy in the nation's Supreme Court were from the academic field and that in this way Comodoro Py would be left behind. No, because it is as far as says. It is to ensure that all members of the mafia do not forget their role of mutual protection. A judge from the academic field ensured his future independence, when historically Peronism dominated the Senate, which is the unavoidable place to be a judge of the nation's Supreme Court. Beans are cooked everywhere, says Nelson Castro. Like the article by Carlos Farah, which tells in 3 Cushion Karam. There is talk of the convenience of 3 parts. The candidacies for judges of the court, documents that the government of Javier Milei will present to the Senate. President Milei to have an automatic majority, Cristina for the cause of the emptying of YPF and Macri for the condemnation of the Argentine mail debt. They denied that the notebooks with Centeno's notes, that information was evidence of any crime. Both in the case of the Centeno notebooks and in my case there is no plaintiff lawyer. Judge Ariel Lijo is not a threat to Gustavo in judicial practice. Count, Farah 2, to drive Gustavo fears that Cristina is thinking about abundance. Instead of Milei's offer to put 1 judge on the court, why not put 2 judges? She refers to the judge of Entre Rios, of the Superior Court, Susana Medina, because she is a woman and because she can be easily manipulated by Cristina and its judicial procedural conveniences. In pursuit of impunity we see empowerment campaigns among partners, of dismissals, case of the Centeno notebooks, of the president of the AFA, Chiqui Tapia, by Pepin Simone, and the emergence of another false crowd between Martin Listo and radicalism, between Milei and Cristina, Jorge Lanata and President Milei, so that I am interested and look at the Argentine media and Cuneo Liberona and the journalist Nancy Pasos, for the same reason and for Nancy. Purple newspaper uses the presidential baton as the phallus in the CIA's cognitions, the phallus as the wood which is the woodman the movie about a Hollywood pedophile. The Triumph of Janus, by Eduardo Fidanza. Jano speaks of Milei's duplicity and farce. Obviously, everyone sees it. Gustavo Gonzalez's will is a political factor. The will that Milei has, it's like the phrase, will is everything and moves mountains. It is not Milei's will, when everyone denotes Milei's character, that he is easily irascible, fanatic, extremist with his ideas, behavior and emotions. It is because the president is at a limit. Economically, politically and with Gustavo's case, we could say and see that he suffers from imposter syndrome. And Argentine journalists increase the repercussions and propaganda. They carry out press and propaganda campaigns for each member of the alliance or mafia. Jorge Lanata from Clarin, the journalist Nancy Pasos. Milei with political and business leaders abroad. Pedovelo is part of the fraud, to help in the promotion and empowerment of Cristina Kirchner. The campaigns and promotions are distributed. Federal judges and prosecutors who show that they work on corruption and security cases. Remember the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken in the Pink House. The partners empower each other and the Minister of Human Resources Pedovelo is taking the hits for the need to leverage Cristina Kirchner. But fire the Chief of Staff Nicholas Passi, that he was meeting in Washington with CIA Chief Burns and they used him to extort money from me at my home. Campaigning against me. They used the elections of representatives to the European Parliament, before the G7 meeting in Italy, where President Emmanuel Macron's coalition was very relegated and losing many votes in Europe. result forced President Macron to dismiss the National Assembly and call for simultaneous elections to fill the vacant positions in that legislature, to form a new French government, which will take place before the Paris 2024 Olympics. Both the CIA and the Argentines making false propaganda from this new situation, French and European. Whether that affected my departure to France has nothing to do with it. China, Kirchner, Milei, and the crisis of those of Carlos Burgueño. Burgueño makes a detour with the anecdote of the missile crisis that affected the world with a conflict between the former USSR, the USA and Cuba, and he mixes it with the renewal of the Chinese swap to Argentina given to Milei's government by the Chinese government, with the obligation that Milei, for his signature, will visit Beijing and meet with Xi Jinping on July 4th, U.S. Independence Day. All this detour that Burgueño makes is to avoid what he tells the main reason why the Chinese government renews the swap to Milei. It is because the Chinese government wants them to continue with the Kirchner-Sapernich Dam and Santa Cruz China agreed to finance, and that successive Argentine governments, since its approval, they have been postponing or delaying the works, even stopping the works, because Argentina used the swap to cover the financial needs of the Argentine Central Bank. The date of July 4th is not for the reasons that Burgueño explains. The date of July 4th, President Xi Jinping is a partner of President Macron for the Gustavo case. The date of July 4th is for the model, Isabelle Fontana, who was born on the 4th of July. Fontana in Italian means fountain. Thence the accident with the motorcycle at the end of 1996. Accident's defense lawyer was called Fuente, fountain. Files in the name of Gustavo Galarza that are in Washington and London. The use and dissemination of these files by the U.S. is wrong and false. To defame and intimidate Gustavo. Gustavo is the witness and owner of those files that he has not yet seen. All this data and information is false. From minors, terrorism, xenophobia, racism, robbery. The U.S. relies on files that it does not show, to spread Gustavo's false identity falsely in the world more than 20 years ago. China is the guarantor that when the U.S. and Argentina are brought to trial, for crimes against humanity, that the U.S. does not delete the information from the website that it has on its servers. The U.S. does not present the information as is in court. We have the backup of the Chinese and the Europeans. Because of Cristina's impunity, her empowerment and the false rift between Cristina and Milei. Artemio Lopez in his article, From the Panelist to the Administrator of Hate Speech, makes a review of Cristina that he did in 2014. Both Artemio Lopez, Cristina Kirchner and the U.S. Embassy know well that in 2014, like now, it's exactly the same. Cristina said, in summary, seeing what is happening in the world and in the UN, if something were to happen to her, it will not come from Iran or the Middle East, but rather it will come from the North. Lopez links it with the beginning of the trial for the attempted assassination of Cristina Kirchner and promoting the false rift between Cristina, as always to victimize her and lift her up. Another who campaigns to confuse public opinion. It is called The Will of Patriotism. Barbaro criticizes that what Milei is doing would be colonialism. He defends Cristina Kirchner and Peronism. Obviously both Julio Barbaro and me and all of them, they know that Julio Barbaro is lying, that Cristina Kirchner is Washington's partner and that everyone's main goal is covering up Cristina Kirchner. Because what Argentina, the U.S. and the world will not endure, that Cristina has lied to all Argentines and she reveals herself to be a partner of Washington. She is not only Washington's partner because of Gustavo's case, she is a partner of Washington for other cases of interest to the U.S. and Peronism. In front of the public each one plays their game as if they were not partners, but now they are more partners than ever. Christian Ridendo is here to explain the situation after the departure of the Chief of Staff, Nicolas Pasi, of the approval of the Basic Law and the riots in the nation's Congress. Ridendo says that Milei's government is full of Kirchneristas, mainly in the intelligence agency AFI. They harassed Gustavo with the police of the province of Buenos Aires PBA, because all the neighbors around Gustavo's home have worked for Kirchnerism since August 2010. Ridendo is telling during the scandal of the delivery of food to the canteens and the lack of gas supply, the one in charge of the AFI was Cristina Kirchner, the same one that later came out to reveal the problem, as did the case of the Lago Escondido wiretapping, who managed the AFI when the Lago Escondido hidden lake case was revealed. Cristina Kirchner. Gustavo attests, because he suffered harassment, persecution and mistreatment from the media, since Cristina's 33-page letter from February, during her public appearances, before the spread of the scandal. With the departure of Nicolas Pasi, the AFI passed into the hands of the Secretary of the Presidency of the nation, Karina Milei, and directed by a leader proposed by Santiago Caputo. The head of the AFI is Sergio Neifert, who had a political career with the former mayor of Malvinas Argentinas, Jesus Caraglino, who is a political partner of Macri. Economy. With Juan I. Fernandez, the chess of monetary policy. The man recounts the economic situation and how Gustavo tells his acquaintances Milei is drying up the country's remaining capital stock. The few stocks that Cristina did not touch, Milei is drying them. Milei's government did a great economic job to temper inflation and control the expansion of the quasi-debt of the central bank of the BCRA. At the same time, all those results that Milei had with the balance sheet of the central bank and the accumulation of dollars have an advertising search for artificial solvency to obtain a loan or attract investments. The gentleman explains it very well. The Milei's government extraordinarily lowered the interest rate for the payment of the BCRA's quasi-fiscal debt. In turn, the government withheld money from importers, with which his model would affect production and the level of Argentine economic activity for the second half of 2024 and all of 2025. The money laundering and the riggy proposed by the government is such a trap for their private criminal American friends. That is what it is for. If they lose to Gustavo, every Argentinian will go to live by hunting and fishing.